to all the organizations which collaborate with us in this event. Kamiyari Media, Crisis in Iranian Cultural Society, Saraya Iran, Iranian Canadian Petroleum and Energy Expert, Society of Iranian Canadian Professional of PC, Khanine Andishe. The purpose of this meeting to give you some information about the referendum which reflect our value and our audience. As a citizen, we must educate ourselves and involve in and participate in election referendum so we can build and have a better city, province, and country. Without further ado, I would like to invite Nasrin Filsouf, founder and president of the CIA.
خانم ها آقایان، درود بر شما. نسرین فیلسوف هستم و از طرف هیئت مدیره بنیاد کانادا و ایران خدمتتان خوش آمد گفته و سپاسگزاریم از تشریف فرمایی شما یاران. بنیاد کانادا و ایران یک سازمان غیر استفاعی است که اهداف آن عبارتند از آموزش فرهنگ به کانادا به مهاجرین تازه وارد به کانادا از طریق کارگاه‌های آموزشی، هدیه بورس تحصیلی به دانشجویان، حمایت و یاری رساندن به سازمان‌های خیریه و امور انسانی. بنیاد کانادا و ایران تاکنون مبلغ $724,000 برای 3 منظور فوق هزینه کرده است. همانطور که در جراید به اطلاعتان رسیده، بنیاد امروز 2 برنامه پی در پی خواهد داشت. برنامه اول مناظره بین 2 نماینده دولت درباره رفراندوم و تغییر سیستم انتخاباتی در BC و برنامه دوم کارگاه آموزشی چاقی و کاهش وزن توسط دکتر فرشید بالا و آذر زیامنش. یکی از مهمترین و حیاتی ترین آموزشی برای هر مهاجر دانستن و آگاهی از سیستم سیاسی آن مملکت می باشد. به همین منظور بنیاد از 2 نماینده دولت دعوت به عمل آورده که در ضمن مناظره با یکدیگر درباره تغییر سیستم فعلی انتخابات استانی توضیح داده و اطلاعات لازم را در اختیار ما بگذارند تا با داشتن اطلاعات کافی با طیب خاطر در رفراندوم شرکت کرده و رأی بدهیم. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. Boeing Ma, MLA for North Vancouver, Lonsdale, and Jane Thornway, MLA for North Vancouver, Seymour, and Mr. Lee. Thank you for coming. My name is Nasrin Filsouf, and on behalf of the Canadian Iranian Foundation Board of Directors, it is my pleasure to welcome you and thank you for coming. The Canadian Iranian Foundation is a registered charitable organization which was established in 2005 and has 3 mandates: to facilitate the social and cultural integration of the new immigrants, to award post-secondary scholarship to students, and to assist and support humanitarian causes. To date, CIF has awarded $724,000 scholarship and donated to various organizations and causes. One important aspect of integration is to understand and adapt country's political system, and then to exercise your right to vote. As some of you may know, the provincial government is having a referendum in order to modify the election system in our province from a first-past-the-post system to a proportional representation system. Many of us do not understand the meaning and outcome of this change. Therefore, CIF invited the 2 North Shore MLAs to explain and debate the new system for us, so we will learn the pros and cons of this new system and vote for the system that we find appropriate and meet our needs. We have invited our 2 MLAs and they have graciously accepted our invitation. So without further ado, I would like to invite Boeing Ma and Jay Thornway. Jay, you're not here today?
I'm here.
You're here, but are you going to debate or?
It's going to be
Mr. Lee.
It's going to be Michael Lee.
Michael Lee,
Yes.
okay, in your place. Thank you for coming. Also, I would like to ask Mr. Mehran Jamshidi, who is the moderator, to come to the podium. Thank you for listening.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining the meeting. Thanks to the MLAs, Bowen, and Mr. Lee. Committee Muriano and myself are going to moderate this session, and I'm going to start by providing you with a little bit of information about what we're going to do and how we're going to run this session based on the strategies that we've defined in advance. So we have a couple of questions that we're going to ask each MLA, and they are going to provide us with their inputs for 2 minutes. And we try to kind of monitor the time, if not control, in order to ensure that everyone is mindful about the time, and we can have the maximum number of questions, and the result is useful and appropriate for us. There are 2 cards here, so after 1 minute and 30 seconds, we're going to show the green card. That means that you only have 30 more minutes left, and then 30 more seconds, thank you. And then when we're at time, which is 2 minutes, we're going to show the red card. And then after each MLA talks about the question, we're going to provide you with 1 more minute to each MLA to provide us with the rebuttal.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, sure.
So that does not, and I hope it doesn't include the translation, because that's on top of what you're doing.
Okay, so then we might need to decrease and reduce the number of questions if you
That's
can.
fine.
Yeah. Okay.
That's fine.
Okay, perfect. So with that, I'm going to invite you to watch a video. That's a 5-6 minute video to provide you with enough information about BC electoral voting system referendum, so you have a good idea on what's going on. And after that, I'm going to get back to you again. Thank you.
Hey, Ryan, do you know anything about this referendum?
I think this video should help answer your questions. This is a big moment for British Columbia. As citizens, we get to decide how the votes we cast in provincial elections are converted into political power. The 2018 referendum on electoral reform lets us choose a voting system for BC, a system that reflects our values. This video will make the referendum simple and easy to understand. We'll use examples to show you how the voting systems work, and we'll point out the main things you need to know. So let's get started.
The referendum is about 2 questions. The first question asks if we want to keep the first past the post voting system or switch to a system of proportional representation. The second question asks which proportional system we prefer. We'll cover all the options. Let's start with our current voting system, first past the post. Like any voting system, first past the post uses a set of rules to convert votes cast into legislative seats. In BC, the elected candidates become members of the Legislative Assembly, or MLAs. What stands out about first past the post is the difference between a party's share of the vote and their share of the seats. We often get false majorities. That's where a party supported by a minority of voters receives more than half the seats. Sometimes we get inflated majorities, where almost all of the seats go to one party. And sometimes we get wrong winner elections, where the party with the second most votes forms a majority government. First past the post also exaggerates regional differences. It causes large regions of the province to be represented by only one party. This can happen even if half the voters in these areas supported other parties.
The referendum offers an alternative, proportional representation. Proportional representation is the principle that each party should win seats in proportion to their share of the votes. It's the form of voting used by the majority of developed countries. With a proportional voting system, the choices British Columbians make at the polls would be more accurately reflected in each region of the province. With a proportional system, every vote would contribute meaningfully to the makeup of the Legislative Assembly. If the majority of voters choose proportional representation on question 1, then BC will adopt a proportional voting system. And for the first time in BC, it's up to voters to decide which proportional system will be adopted. That's why there's a second question on the ballot. Question 2 allows voters to choose which proportional voting system will be adopted if the majority support change. Regardless of how you vote on the first question, you can answer question 2 or leave it blank. If you choose to answer question 2, you'll want a basic understanding of each option. We'll cover what you need to know using a simple example. The province of BC has 87 MLAs. Our example is a fictional island with just 11 MLAs. This will make it easier to see how the systems work. All the voting systems involve ridings, areas represented by local MLAs. With first past the post, every voter has one MLA who represents their riding. The proportional systems give voters more than one representative. This can be done without increasing the overall number of seats. You'll see how this works as we go through the 3 proportional systems.
We'll start with dual member proportional. The key thing to know is that DMP maintains 100% local MLAs. Dual member proportional takes most of our current ridings and combines them in pairs to form 2-member ridings. A small number of ridings may be considered too large to combine. These areas would remain as single-member ridings, but would still influence the popular vote. After the polls close on election day, the popular vote determines how many seats each party wins. The seats are then assigned to local candidates based on local support. The first seat in every riding goes to the local candidate with the most votes, just like the current system. The second seat in the 2-member ridings are used to make the overall results proportional. Every party wins just enough second seats to end up with their fair share of MLAs in the legislature. The system aims to award these seats to the most popular remaining candidates in each of the ridings. DMP produces proportional election results while maintaining 100% local MLAs.
Next up is mixed member proportional. The main thing to know about MMP is that it mixes local and regional representation. In mixed member proportional, the majority of MLAs still represent single member ridings. The remaining MLAs represent the encompassing region, which would be one of several regions in the province. After the polls close on election day, the seats are awarded as follows. Local MLAs get elected by winning the most votes in their ridings, similar to the current system. Regional MLAs are elected in a way that ensures the overall seat distribution closely matches the popular vote. MMP produces proportional election results while mixing local and regional representation.
The final system, rural-urban proportional, maximizes voter choice. In rural-urban proportional, ridings in urban and semi-urban areas merge and become multi-member ridings. These larger ridings allow voters to use a ballot where local candidates can be ranked both between parties and within the same party. This gives voters a lot more choice. Less densely populated ridings would be considered too large to combine. These areas would remain as single-member ridings and would continue to elect the most popular local candidates. With rural-urban proportional, the seats dedicated to single-member and multi-member ridings almost match the popular vote, but not quite. To make the results proportional in the rural areas of BC, a small number of regional MLAs would also be elected. RUP produces proportional election results while maximizing voter choice.
So those are the proportional voting systems. They all deliver proportional election results. They all provide effective representation. All 3 proportional systems have a distinguishing feature that you can use to rank them on your referendum ballot.
It's not often citizens get to choose how their democracy evolves, but this is one of those occasions. So please, take a few minutes, complete and mail the ballot, and encourage others to do the same. You can help other British Columbians learn about the referendum by sharing this video. And thanks for watching.
Okay, great. I think the video was enough self-explanatory, and I hope you've received enough information. I'm going to provide you with more information about the important deadlines and the voting package that you've already received and when to mail it to the BC elections. As you notice, there are 2 systems. One is the current system, which is called FPTP, that is first past the post, or the proportional, which in turn has 3 subcategories. So now I want to invite MLA Bowen Ma to provide her opening statement for 10 minutes. Thank you.
Oh, 10 minutes. I don't think I'll need that. Hello, salam bahamagi. Khub hasti? Man Bowen Ma namoyande majlis dar dolate New Democrat hastam. Beinja hosh amadi. Man az nezame ente chabate tanasobi hemoyat mikonam. So hello everyone, my name is Bowen Ma. I'm the MLA for North Vancouver Lonsdale. I'm also with the on the New Democrat caucus. And I'll be voting to move away from our current antiquated first past the post system towards a proportional representation system. And I'm voting for proportional representation because I believe in the promise of democracy, that all people are equal, which means that all voices matter and all votes should count towards the end result of an election. By the way, this is Madhyar. He's volunteered to translate for me. So we'll do back and forth a little bit.
Thanks, Boyan. Hi, everyone. قسمت اول که فکر کنم احتیاج به معرفی نداشته باشه، چون بوین ما اصلا نماینده مجلس از مایکروبالانسر و رأی ایشون به نظام انتخابی تناسبی هست. چون که ایشون اعتقاد دارن که با نظام انتخاباتی تناسبی این اصل مهم دموکراسی، ایشون باور دارن بهش که دولت‌های ما میباید توسط مردم و برای جامعه عمل پوشاندن به اراده و خواسته های متنوع مردم جامعه انتخاب بشن. چرا که رأی ما در واقع تجلی صدا و خواسته های ماست که دولت‌های انتخابی ما باید به آنها توجه کنند.
So I look forward to having BC join the majority of democracies around the world, like Sweden, Switzerland, Finland, New Zealand, Norway, Belgium, Denmark, Iceland, Ireland, and the list goes on to nearly 90 countries around the world that have embraced proportional representation as the way to allow our parliaments to be more representative of the diversity of political opinion that truly exists in the province and the diversity of being that truly exists in this province.
Thank you. من مشتاقانه منتظرم که استان بریتیش کلمبیا هم مانند دموکراسی‌های بزرگ در دنیا مثل سوئد، سوئیس، نروژ، فنلاند، بلژیک، دانمارک، ایسلند، ایرلند و آلمان که البته این لیست خیلی بلند بالایی خواهد بود، شامل 90 کشور توی دنیا. امیدوارم که در حقیقت استان ما هم به این لیست بلند بالای دموکراسی‌های بزرگ بپیونده و در حقیقت از نظام انتخاباتی تناسبی حمایت بکنه، چون که نظام انتخاباتی تناسبی با استفاده از اون تنوع نظرات مردم کاملا لحاظ میشه و مجلس مانند آینه‌ای بازتاب رأی‌های مردم خواهد بود.
With the translation, maybe it will take 10 minutes. Thank you so much, Madhyar. So proportional representation, as you saw from the video, means that 40% of the vote equals 40% of the seats, not 55 or 60%, which is what happens under first past the post today, which often leads to false majorities and unfair levels of power in the legislature. Right now, first past the post allows a plurality of voters, so the most voters, but not necessarily a majority of voters, to dictate for the whole province what values and principles their government should put forward for the rest of the province.
Thank you. در نظام انتخاباتی تناسبی به عنوان مثال 40% آرای مردم به هر حزبی منجر به انتخاب 40% نمایندگان مجلس از اون حزب خواهد شد، یعنی به نسبت نه اینکه 40% رای به 55% و یا به 60% کرسی‌های نمایندگی ختم بشه، چون در این صورت دولت‌های به اصطلاح اکثریت کاذب و یا غیر واقعی خواهیم داشت که 100% قدرت را بدون چون و چرا و تنها با حداقل رای به دست خواهند آورد. نظام فعلی نخست نفری یا همون فرست پس پست باعث میشه که تعدادی از رأی‌هایی که الزاماً اکثریت رأی‌ها نیستند برای تمام مردم استان تعیین تکلیف بکنه و برای ارزش‌ها و خواسته‌های همه تصمیم بگیره بدون اینکه اکثریت مردم به اون دولت رأی داده باشن.
I also believe in collaboration, in constructive dialogue, in compromise for the betterment of the whole. And I look forward to throwing out the old divisive way that we do politics that are currently bolstered by an antiquated first past the post system that tends towards keeping two dominant parties at each other's throats day in and day out. I'm tired of the hyper-partisanship that dominates politics here. Tired of an electoral system that encourages political leaders to be more concerned with the health of their own party than the health of the public.
من به همکاری و همفکری اعتقاد دارم. به گفتگوی سازنده دو طرفه معتقدم و به گذشت و مصالحه برای رسیدن به راه حلی به نفع و برای بهبود وضعیت اکثریت مردم اعتقاد دارم. من مشتاقانه منتظر زمانی هستم که سیاست بازی های تفرقه انگیز و کهنه و قدیمی که میراث نظام ناکارآمد فعلی نخست نفری هستند رو پشت سر بگذارم. نظام انتخاباتی که فقط به دعواهای سیاسی بین دو حزب غالب بزرگ روز و شب دامن میزنه و بیشتر باعث جنگ و مناظره میشه تو کارهای گروهی احزاب به نفع مردم. من از حزبگرایی های افراطی که سیاست را فرا گرفته خسته‌ام. من خسته‌ام از نظام انتخاباتی که رهبران احزاب را بیشتر به اهمیت به سلامت حزبشان تشویق می‌کند تا به اهمیت به بهداشت و سلامت مردم جامعه.
Our current system, or our electoral system, should be designed to encourage political parties to work together to get things done, instead of fighting for the sake of fighting. Look, no democracy, no system of democracy is perfect, because humans are terribly imperfect. And Lord knows that our elected officials are not perfect. But I do believe that we can do great things together if we set ourselves up to succeed by emphasizing cooperation over divisiveness. If we set up our system of democracy as one that values constructive conversations and rewards politicians and parties that know how to work together instead of the ones that know how to issue the most effective attacks against each other. We can do this with proportional representation to bring fairness, collaboration, and good representation to this province.
نظام انتخاباتی ما باید احزاب رو به همکاری و همفکری با هم تشویق کنه تا از این طریق برای رسیدگی به بهبود وضعیت مردم تلاش کنند به جای اینکه با هم مدام مشغول جنگ و جدال باشند. اگر خوب دقت بکنید خواهید فهمید که تمام تلاششون رو خواهند کرد که با رعب و وحشت و ترساندن شما از صحبت‌ها نظرتون رو تغییر بدن و خواهید دید که و ما همه میدونیم که هیچ نظام دموکراسی کامل و بی‌نقص نیست، چون انسان‌ها کامل و بی‌نقص نیستند. هیچ کدوم از ماها کامل نیستیم. خدا خودش میدونه که سیاستمدارای ما مسئول از اشتباه و لغزش نیستند. اما من از ته قلب اطمینان دارم که با همفکری با هم دستاوردهای بزرگی خواهیم داشت و موفق خواهیم شد اگر به جای تفرقه آگاهانه روی همکاری مشترک تمرکز بکنیم. همه ما موفق خواهیم شد اگر نظام انتخاباتی انتخاب بکنیم که در آن گفتمان سازنده بین احزاب اهمیت داده بشه بهش و نظام انتخاباتی که در آن احزاب سیاسی و سیاستمداران بیشتر به همکاری فکر کنند به جای اینکه با هم در جنگ و جدال باشند. ما با نظام انتخاباتی تناسبی قادریم تمام این کارهای مثبت و مفید را برای مردم انجام بدیم. قادر خواهیم بود ارزش‌هایی مثل عدالت، همکاری مشترک و نمایندگانی صالح و شایسته در مجلس داشته باشیم.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I ask Jane Lauren.
Do you want me to just introduce them?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Hi everyone, I'm Jane Thornthwaite, MLA for North Vancouver Seymour, and I'd like to welcome my special guest, Michael Lee. He is somebody that has gone around the province and talked about the serious implications of proportional representation and to truly educate people before you vote. Certainly educate yourself. I'd just like to also have a special shout out to my colleagues Joan Isaacs from Coquitlam-Burke Mountain and Donna Barnett from the Caribou Chilcotin. And unfortunately we have to leave right at 2:30 because we have a helijet to catch. So I apologize for that. But no further ado, I'd like to welcome Michael Lee. He's been to North Vancouver numerous times and he's going to take on the debate today. Thank you.
Can I just ask, I know we've been translating, we're happy to do that, but just kind of get a show of hands in terms of how many people would appreciate translation, the continued translation, so I can get a sense? Okay. So let me say that just further to what Jane said, I am someone who was born and raised in Vancouver. My parents came from Hong Kong in the 50s and 60s. And like many of you, whose parents and yourselves who've come to this country, you come at a time where you want to be part of a society and a community that, as Nazarene talked about, wants to encourage you to be part of our political process. So I think very appreciative for this opportunity to talk with you today about our political process.
با سلام، خسته نباشین. اصلا خدمتتون که فرمودن که ایشون اینجا متولد شده، خانواده‌شون از هنگ کنگ بوده و مثل بقیه میگرنت‌ها که دوست دارن قسمتی از سوسایتی باشن رو هستم. من توی چند ثانیه میخوام یه مطلبی بگم. ما تمرین قبلی راجع به ترنسلیشن و ترجمه اینا نداشتیم. اگر جای اشکالی به وجود اومد ببخشید منو، ولی مطمئنا در این مورد خاص با عنوان تولید کننده بعدا من در خدمتتون خواهم بود که اطلاعات کاملتری رو بهتون بدم که جامعه ایرانی بیشتر اطلاعات داشته باشه.
And this is a fundamental decision. I also want to point out that the video that you saw had a particular slant on it. It was very much in favor of proportional representation. So you should understand that the points that were made in the video were biased, let's say. So I will speak to some of those points. I would also encourage you to check out many of the materials. Some of them, these yellow cards that have gone around, I'm sure the people who are in favor of proportional representation have some other materials here. We have materials online on various websites. And a colleague of ours, though, Sam Sullivan, the MLA for Vancouver Falls Creek, through Jane and others here, certainly if you look at his videos, you'll see also alternative understandings of what our voting system looks like.
در واقع دارن توضیح میدن که این سیستم درصدی که در واقع برای رأی و اینا داره انجام میشه اطلاعاتی رو از دیدگاه مختلف توضیح داده شده و یکی که به اهمیت اینا میپردازه و شرایطی که میگه جنی همکارش و دوستاش هم در این مورد صحبتایی رو داشتن.
And some of you have seen this publication that has our leader Andrew Wilkinson within this Hamariari media outlet. I'm sure others have been in various news publications, but this is just another example. Certainly, Andrew and I are both lawyers in training. I was a lawyer for 20 years. And like Melanie Mark, our advanced education minister, I got a political science degree as well, and a master's degree in political science. And I can tell you that my main concern about this referendum, first and foremost, is that it has been unfair. The only reason why we are doing this referendum now is because in order for the NDP government to form, even though, as you may know, the BC Liberals had the most number of seats, the most amount of popular vote, greatest percentage, the NDP needed the support of 3 Green Party members. And the main commitment that they gave to the 3 Green Party members but that there would be a referendum on proportional representation, that it would be held at the same time as the municipal election that you just had here in North Shore, that they would both campaign in favor of proportional representation. This is our government campaigning in favor of change, as Bowen has just explained, and that it would be done now in November of 2018. This is the reason why it's been rushed. But let me just stop there and allow the translation.
Yeah, it was welcome. میگه درس خیلی ناعادلانه است که این از نظر درصدی بخواد این انجام بشه و گرین پارتی هم 3 تا از افرادشون که هستن اینا در واقع یک از دلایلی بوده که توسط بی ساپورت شده و این در حالا به دلایل بعدی که میپردازه که چرا این پروپورشنال یا درصدی نمیتونه خیلی عادلانه و منصفانه باشه راجع به خیلی از تصمیماتی که گرفته میشه برای
So for whatever reason, even though we're 3 years away from the next election, November of 2021, 3 years from now, we're being asked to make a decision now. And the government had the time to engage with British Columbians. Hands up, how many have heard about this referendum? Okay, so that's about 60% of the room. That means 40% have not heard about this referendum, really, which is the reason why you're here today, which is great. But voting started 10 days ago. So this is a time where it's another example of how this government has actually failed all of us, because they have left all of the details of those three systems that you looked at earlier to be after the vote, to be determined after the vote. We don't know the size of the ridings. We don't know what kind of voting system will be employed in an urban, semi-urban, or rural riding, because we can't define under this government what a riding is defined as. Is North Vancouver or Squamish, Pemberton, is that a semi-urban riding? It's a question. And under rural urban, depending on what the answer to that question is, determines what kind of voting system would be employed in your particular riding.
در واقع میگه خیلی با عجله انجام شده، تقریبا شاید 40% افراد راجع به مسئله اطلاعاتی ندارن و چون با عجله داره انجام میشه دقیقاً میتونه تبعاتی رو بعداً داشته باشه و بدون بررسی کامل انجام شده، بدون تبعاتی که میتونه این به صورت عجله‌ای بخواد این پروپورشنال یا درصدی بخواد انجام بشه. در واقع نظر اصلیشون به این برمیگرده که نیاز به اطلاعات بیشتر و نیاز به مطالعات بیشتر در راجع به نتیجه این سیستم هست که اگر قرار پروپورشنال یا درصدی انجام بشه، یعنی اگر درصد آرای مردم بخواد تاثیر داشته باشه در تصمیمات میتونه به چه صورتی باشه. حالا میگم اینو من فکر کنم خیلی بیشتر احتیاج باز بشه بعداً، هرچند دوره انتخاباتی که از 10 روز که شروع شده تا بعد الان ما بیشتر در موردش سعی کنیم با اطلاعات بیشتری تو جریان بهش بپردازیم برای ایرانیایی که تمایل دارن به رأی و این انتخابات نقش داشته باشن در نتیجهش.
And under the mixed member proportional system, which is the second of the three choices on this ballot, up to 40% can be selected off party lists. And in your voter's guide, how many have received the voter's guide in the mailbox? If you look at the middle of that voter's guide, it says that under mixed member, you can have one vote, or you might have two votes. You vote for the party, or you vote for the candidate, or maybe you vote for the candidate and that represents both votes. It also says that there are three ways in which the representation in a regional electoral district will be determined. Closed list, which means the party determines. You vote for the party, you don't vote for the individual. Open list, which means they have the list designated by the party, or open list with a party option, which is both of those things, supposedly. But the point is that under these voting systems, unlike the time in British Columbia in 2005 and 2009, we had the opportunity to look at electoral reform before. The government stayed out of it. The government involved citizens like you to determine what is the best or better electoral system that we should consider. And they brought it to a referendum. And that's what they did back then. This time around, the government has taken a side. And this is the reason why we are getting the kind of biased information, lack of details, and the unfairness in this referendum.
در واقع داره میگه در گذشته خب مردم نظرشون رو میدادن، این دفعه خیلی با عجله به شما آپشن دادن که میخواین برای شخص یا برای پارتی بخواین رای بدید. در واقع خیلی لاک آف اینفورمیشن بوده، اطلاعات کافی از قبل پروواید نشده، ارائه نشده برای افراد که بدونن اصلا داستان چیه، ماجرا به چه صورتی است که افراد بخوان اینجوری بیان در واقع ووت بدن. و اینو گورنمنت در واقع اومده، دولت اومده در واقع تو پراپرتی افراد، این در واقع شاید حق جامعه بوده که بخواد تصمیم بگیره، نه که دولت براشون تصمیم بگیره بهشون آپشن جلوشون بذاره که به چه صورتی بخوان رأی بدن یا در واقع اون سه تا آپشن رو بخوان بهش توجه داشته باشن که یک کدومش انجام بشه در واقع یا هر کدومش در واقع.
Thank you so much. Thanks. Okay, great openings from both parties. While you already answered and addressed lots of concerns and covered lots of information, I'm going to ask questions. And I'm going to ask from Bowen by my first question. We noticed that you mentioned that you're supporting the proportional system. Would you please provide the audience with your response and inputs regarding the advantages of the electoral system that you're supporting over the other one? You have 2 minutes, please, to support your comments. Thank you.
For sure. I'm going to stay seated for the rest of the day, or rest of the debate, I think, just to keep us from getting a headache from standing up and sitting down so much. Proportional representation and first past the post are 2 forms of democratic systems. They both have challenges and they both have advantages, but there are 2 different forms of democratic systems, and they each provide a different vision for what you believe a democracy should provide you. So for instance, under first past the post is a plurality system where the most votes, but not necessarily a majority of votes gets to take control of the province. Whereas under proportional representation, it's a system that is designed to make sure that every vote counts towards the end result of an election. 80% of countries in the OECD use some form of proportional representation, and 8 out of 10 of the top democracies in the world, according to the World Economic Forum, use a form of proportional representation. Politicians must work together to achieve outcomes, and there's actually and best of all, of course, your vote counts. Now, proportional representation countries also tend to have higher voter turnout. That is a researched fact. People feel more connected to their votes, and so they tend to vote more. Those countries also have a tendency to score higher on measures of happiness, have more representative parliaments, better political participation, civil liberties, and more. But overall, all of those outcomes are general benefits of having a more collaborative parliament where people feel like they are actually being represented. And you'll notice in the opening statements, they didn't once explain why they want first past the post. They're trying to muddy the waters and trying to complain about the process in order to keep you from actually being able to understand the difference. I'm going to stop because I got the red card.
با اجازهتون منم نشسته پاسخ میدم. سری میرم سراغ اصل مطلب. سوال این بودش که چه چیزایی در مورد proportional representation نقاط مثبتش در حقیقت چیا هستش. ببینید اینا 2 تا نظام کاملا متفاوت با هم هستند. یعنی نظام نخست نفری یا همون اسب برنده و نظام انتخاباتی تناسبی، اینا با هم کاملا متفاوتن. در نظام انتخاباتی نخست نفری یا اسب برنده first past the post، این تعداد بالای رأی ها هست که نماینده رو انتخاب میکنه و نه الزاماً اکثریت رأی ها. این خیلی با هم مهمه. plurality versus majority، این خیلی نکته مهمیه. اما در proportional representation همه رأی های شما به حساب میان، هیچ رأی به دور ریخته نمیشه و با یه سیستم انتخاباتی تناسبی در حقیقت شما یه جورایی تشویق میکنین سیاستمداران رو که با هم کار بکنن، با هم همفکری بکنن و با هم تصمیم بگیرن تا بتونن نتایج بهتری برای مردم به بار بیارن. یک نکته خیلی مهم دیگه این که باعث افزایش تعداد رای دهنده ها میشه سیستم پروپورشنال. برای اینکه تکرار میکنم شما مجبور دیگه نگران این نیستین که خب من الان برم رای بدم، مهم نیست رای من به حساب نمیاد، شمرده نمیشه. معمولا کشورهایی که از این سیستم استفاده میکنن که در حقیقت کشورهایی از نظر اقتصادی خیلی پیشرفته هم هستند، 85% کشورهایی که جزء OECD هستند از سیستم پروپورشنال استفاده میکنن. کشورهای خوشحالتری هستن، کشورهایی هستن که خیلی میزان موفقیتشون بیشتره. و نکته آخری که اگه دقت کرده باشین، مایک صحبت نکرد در مورد اینکه ما چرا از شما میخوایم که به نظام انتخاباتی first past the post یا نخست نفری رای بدین و اصلا در مورد نکات مثبتش هیچی به شما نمیگن. فقط سعی میکنن به شما بگن که انتخابات تناسبی پیچیده است و بهش رای ندین. همین.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you for your inputs. And same question for you, Michael. What are the advantages of the electoral system that you're supporting? 2 minutes, please.
Well, the current first past the post system has been in place in Canada for close to 150 years. It's a system of government that has provided for stable government. And what does that do? We are a province which has a vast geography. We have 87 different electoral districts. There's a great diversity in our province, geographically, economically, socially, and community-based. We need strong local representation to represent the vast geography in this province, which is larger than many of the smaller European countries that are quite homogeneous in nature by comparison. We need to continue to have a system of voting that gives us as British Columbians the ability to elect strong majority governments. Majority governments that we can hold accountable. If you don't like the way that the BC Liberals have presented as government, you can choose not to give them a majority government. That's what happened in 2017. Same thing happened with the NDP in the late 90s. You have that opportunity. Under proportional representation, what you will see is division. Because if a party gets more than 5% of the vote under proportional representation, they will get 5% and more of the seats in the House. And as we've seen in other countries in Europe, there has been single-issue fringe extremist parties. In New Zealand, anti-immigration. In Sweden, more recently. And governments that can't even form after elections, going months at a time to form their government. In Italy, there's been 65 different governments since the end of the Second World War, when we had 22. That's what I mean by stability. And simple in terms of knowing who you're voting for. Not letting the political parties determine who are going to represent you. You, the voters, need to determine who is going to represent you in the government.
Thank you. میگه 150 سال این سیستم بوده و هر نماینده‌ای در واقع تو منطقه خودش در واقع میتونه اینجوری رپرزنتیتیو منطقه خودش باشه. بعد میگه تو کشورهای مثل فرانسه و خیلی جای دیگه میتونست رو مسائل امیگریشن تاثیر زیادی داشته باشه. گروه فاندامنتالی که رو کار اومدن، آنتی ایمیگرانت بودن و مواردهای دیگه میتونه باشه. حالا من یه مقدار اطلاعاتی رو میخوام خودم به این مسئله اضافه کنم. جهت اطلاع، معمولا ما ایرانی‌ها کمتر تو مسائل سیاسی هستیم و نه تو رأی، مگر اینکه یک مسائل فاندامنتالی پیش اومده دور قبل توی انتخابات شرکت کردم. عرضم خدمتتون که به عنوان کسی که تو تولید هستم میتونم بگم ضررمون از دولت بالای $2 میلیون فقط در سال. میخوام بگم یه سیستم و بعد زمانی که یک جمله دیگه ایشون میخوام بگم که این سیستم باعث جداسازی دیواید میشه، یونایتد شدن رو ایجاد نمیکنه، همونطور که گفته خیلی با راش داره انجام میشه، با عجله داره انجام میشه. بعد حالا چیزی که بنده خودم حالا میخوام اینو کمک کنم این قسمت، با عنوان تولید کننده $2 میلیون ضرر کمی نیست و هر چقدر دولت دخالت بیشتری توی سیستم تولید بخواد داشته باشه، توی سیستم اداری بخواد داشته باشه، چون اکثرا تخصصشون موضوعی نیست که دارن توش کار میکنن. همین نماینده شدن رفتن توی مثلا طرف شاید دکتر بوده، لویر بوده، اومده مسئول راه شده مثلا. سو اینا مشکلاتی که ما کلا توی سیستم دولت داریم. این که بحث پروفشنال مشکلی که ایجاد میکنه چیه؟ مشکلی که ایجاد میکنه، فکر کن تو ونکوور یه جایی که جمعیتش بالاست، یه NDP رای بیاره، 10 تا نماینده دیگه باید تو کانتری سایت، تو محیط روستایی اندازه اون حق رایت رو ندارن، چون درصد آمار بیشتری داره. همیشه آمار بالا این حق و حقوق رو تعریف نمیکنه. حالا اینو من در آینده سعی میکنم تو روزنامه‌های ایرانی، جراید ایرانی بیشتر این آگاهی رو بدم، هرچند وقت خیلی کمه.
اصلا یه خواهشی بکنم، دقیقاً اون که گفته میشه ترنسلیت بشه.
اوکی، چشم. حالا اون قسمتی که گفته رو که فکر کنم بیشتر رو، چون دوستمان یه مقدار از آفرود رفته، منم همین کار رو کردم، چون ایشون هم چیزایی از خودش گفت. بعد عرض کنم خدمتتون که
وقت شما تموم شده. نکته دو، شما 20% صحبت‌هایشون رو ترجمه کردین، 80% رو دقیقاً از خودتون گفتین. با اتفاقاً با انتخابات فرست پس پست خیلی میخونه. شما 80% خودتون اکثریت حساب کردین و صحبت کردین. اطلاعاتی که به مردم دادین اشتباهه. برای $2 میلیون صحبت کردین. من نمیدونم. I'm not sure where Mike Lee talked about this, but you were just adding stuff, talking about stuff that he didn't say. So I'm just feeling bad for Mike. Right?
So no, that's again. Let me explain something, because he added something in his side was not related to the translations. So I added my own personal experience on that. So that's the part of the last
That's
one.
not your job.
I know, it's not that, I know. But it was awful of that side too, so.
Sorry, dear moderators, we need to ensure that everyone is happy.
Right, thank you.
The
Sorry.
rules tell us that translators should only translate.
Right,
Please,
that's right.
if there is anything else that the MLAs want to add, you're going to be provided with enough time.
Yes,
to
for sure.
have the
Sorry.
opportunity to talk. So thank you so much for both of you.
Thank you.
For the inputs. And now Bowen has 1 more minute for any rebuttal and any comments about the first question, either for your comments or against what Michael said. Thank you.
For sure. I want to address the concept that first past the post somehow creates more stable government. First past the post creates what is known as false majorities. So those are majority governments that have total control of the legislature because they have more than 50% of the seats, but they don't actually represent more than 50% of the votes. What this often results in is called policy lurches. That's when majority governments get thrown out, you bring in another majority government in, and then you end up with governments that purposely repeal policies and legislation that were brought in by the previous government just to make a political point, just to make them look bad. A perfect example of this is the Human Rights Commission. The Human Rights Commission, just one issue, was brought in by the NDP in the 70s, thrown out by the Social Credit Party in the 80s, brought in by the NDP again in the 90s, thrown out by the BC Liberal Party in the 2000s, and then brought in again just last week. This is an example of a policy lurch, and it is not stable.
مرسی وان. اگه اجازه بدیم من بشینم دقیقا چیزی که ایشون صحبت کردن رو ترجمه براتون میکنم و نظرات شخصیم رو. ببینید ایشون صحبت میکنن میگن که به دقیقاً دولت‌های پایدار ختم میشه سیستم فرست پست پست، در صورتی که اینطوری نیست. شما اکثریت‌های کاذب دارید با سیستم نخست نفری فرست پست پست، به این معنی که شما 40% رأی مردم ختم میشه به انتخاب تعدادی از نماینده ها که اونها 100% قدرت رو در دست میگیرن. تکرار میکنم 40% رأی به 100% قدرت در حقیقت ترجمه میشه. یکی اینکه نوسان‌های مختلف دیگه ای خواهید داشت وقتی که شما سیستم فرست پست پست رو استفاده میکنید، خیلی بالا و پایین میره تصمیمات سیاسی. یه نکته خیلی مهم، همین دولتی که ایشون نمایندگیش رو میکنن چندین سال پیش ورداشتن و کمیسیون حقوق بشر رو کامل که دولت NDP آورده بود ورداشتن، ما آوردیمش، باز ورداشتنش، هفته پیش که نه 2 روز پیش ما مجددا کمیسیون رو برقرار کردیم، کمیسیون در حقیقت دفاع از حقوق شما. ببخشید که یه مقدار بیشتر صحبت کردم.
Thank you. So Michael, you have 1 minute, please.
What happens under proportional representation is after the vote is taken, it takes weeks and months. In Belgium, 589 days, the country is waiting to determine who is going to be in government. As I mentioned before, with the number of different governments that are formed in Italy, Germany has had the same experience. Sweden right now is still challenged by a alt-right, far-right, anti-immigration party. Same thing happened in New Zealand. These is what I'm talking about in terms of divisiveness. The determination of what has happened here depends on the support of smaller parties, these fringe parties with single issues that have to prop up a government. And this is the challenge here that we see in this province. So this is the concern that we should all have for your children, your grandchildren, in terms of stability. We have seen British Columbia and Canada. You came to this country for a good reason. It's been built on this voting system, first past the post.
میگه این سیستم توی بلژیک، توی آلمان، توی فرانسه، خیلی کشور که انجام شده با مشکلاتی روبرو شده. شما اومدید این کشور برای زندگی بهتر با شرایطی که وجود داره در واقع، و این سیستمی که هم توی اون کشور جواب نده میتونه اینجا هم جواب نده درست.
Thank you very much. Next question will be for Michael. Could you please tell us what are the disadvantages of the voting system that the other party are supporting? We can talk about that for 2 minutes, please.
Well, we've been talking about it in the first question as well, but let me just say that the area that I've been speaking to as well has been decreased local representation. In North Vancouver, under single transferable vote, as we've seen in the previous two referenda, Vancouver would have been actually split into two new zones, with 4 or 5 MLAs representing yourselves in an increased zone. We need to ensure that when you elect Bowen Ma or Jane Thornwade or Jordan Sturdy or Ralph Sultan here on the North Shore, that you have that direct level of relationship and accountability. That person is your representative, and if you don't like the job that he or she has done, you get the opportunity to vote them out. Off a party list, it changes that whole dynamic where the party determines who is going to be your representative in a closed list situation, for example. And this is where there's a shift from you, the voters, to political parties. This is a concern. This is a concern because we start to divide ourselves. Because we are here to represent you, regardless of whether you voted for BC Liberal, BC Green, BC Conservative, BC NDP, BC Communist, all the other 25 other registered parties in this province that we will see. They are registered today, and we will see more smaller parties come forward. And under proportional representation, if you voted for a party, the BC North Shore Party, in favor of greater transportation links to the North Shore, and they don't get more than 5% of the vote, your votes don't count. Because under proportional representation, unless you have the party that you voted for that gets greater than 5% of the vote, your votes don't count. Today, your votes do count. This is a forward-looking democracy. It's not antiquated as was said before.
در واقع ایشون داره میگه که اگر شما در ونکوور که به 2 زون تقسیم شده یا فرض که در نورت ون شما بانما و جینی دارین در اینجا بهش ووت میدین، هر کسی تو چون دیستریکت خودش داره ووت میشه، اینا رپرزنتیتیو های شما هستن. ولی در اون حالت چون اگر جمعیت به نسبت جمعیت داره ووت داده میشه، افراد چون تعداد جمعیت بیشتری در یه مکان دیگه تجمع داره، اونا میتونن بیشتر اینفلوئنس بیشتری داشته باشن، چون آمار بیشتری رو در واقع دارن پرزنت میکنن. در واقع مفهوم مطلبی که دارن.
Can I clarify that, sir? I think very quickly.
Sure.
I think what he meant was each riding will potentially have 2 MLAs as opposed to 1 right now, and the second MLA will be actually selected by the party, so they're not going to be necessarily representing you. So you might vote for.
Excuse me.
That's what I.
Yeah, they already talk. Thank you. No. Bowen, you can use regarding the disadvantage of the other parties.
You know, I actually think I'm going to use my time to try to clarify some of the disadvantage or some of the claims that are being made about proportional representation. First off, Michael, you know as well as I do that there are measures and safeguards in place for BC's system to ensure that there continues to be local representation. The systems that are being proposed here for proportional representation are actually hybrid systems. They're a hybrid of first past the post and proportional representation. That's how we get the local MLAs, as you saw from the video, and then we get topped up by proportionality to make sure that all the seats are fair. So no matter where you are, you will always have a local MLA. In fact, you may actually have more than 1 local MLA because it's been voted in by proportionality. I can't tell you how many times I have had community members come to me because they don't want anything to do with their local MLA because they don't hold the values and principles that they have. And that's okay. I'm sure a lot of people in my riding feel the same way. The fact of the matter is, it is hard for you to go and expect somebody to advocate for your needs when you know that they disagree with you. So when we're talking about first past the post, that's what happens under first past the post. Your vote only counts if you win. If your candidate loses by 1 vote or by 10,000 votes, you might as well not have voted. That's what happens under first past the post. Under proportional representation, it doesn't matter if your local candidate won or not. Your vote still counts towards the end result of an election. You know what that means? It means no more strategic voting. No more saying, you know what, I really want to vote for purple, but I know they're never going to win, and I really don't like red or orange, but I guess I'll have to vote for them. Why do you have to choose between two parties that you don't like because your vote doesn't count under first past the post? You should be able to vote for who you want to vote for. That's what proportional representation allows you to do. It's that simple.
Merci, Boyan.
Okay, it's 2:30. The Jamie, what about you? All of you need to? We are okay? Thank you so much, Jane, for coming.
I'm very sorry, I have to go. I don't want to miss my flight.
Okay, hopefully
You can
my time is not gone. Okay, all right.
Right.
ببینید تمهیداتی باید میگه که به مایکل داره میگه که تمهیداتی برای حفظ رأی‌های مردم و صیانت از اونها در نظر گرفته شده در سیستم ترکیبی که در حقیقت رأی‌های شما حفظ بشه و گروه‌های تندرو نتونن انتخاب بشن. نکته مهم دیگه اینه که همیشه شما یه نماینده خواهید داشت با در حقیقت سیستم پی آر و نه تنها یک نماینده که حتی بعضی وقتا ممکنه در یه جایی بیشتر از یک نماینده داشته باشین. یعنی به تعداد نماینده‌های انتخابی بیشتر میشه. more representation. باید میگه که سخته که مثلا شما به کسی که رأی ندادین بخواید بریم باهاش صحبت بکنیم و اگه مشکلی داریم باهاش صحبت بکنیم بشینیم باهاش حرف بزنیم بلکه ممکنه اصلا به حرف شما گوش نکنه توجه نکنه به حرف شما چون با شما موافق نیست. نکته آخر این که با پی آر با سیستم تناسبی رأی‌های شما در حقیقت به حساب میاد لحاظ میشه در انتخاب دولت و احتیاج نیست استراتژیک ووتینگ انجام بدیم مثل انتخابات قبلی فدرال اگه یادتون باشه میگفتن به این حزب رأی ندیم برای اینکه اون حزب برنده نشه. شما دیگه احتیاج نیست نگران این باشین به اون کسی رأی میدین که میخواین انتخاب بشه. اگر دیگران بهش رأی ندادن حزبی که شما بهش رأی دادین در حقیقت نماینده‌ای که شما بهش رأی دادین به نسبت کلی رأی‌ها در حقیقت کل رأی‌ها رو برنده خواهد شد و تکرار میکنم مجبور نیستیم به کسی رأی بدین که نمیخواید بهش رأی بدید و استراتژیک ووتینگ انجام بدین. I'm done.
Michael, if you have any comment for 1 minute.
You know, voting is not about picking the right color. You know, I think that we need to ensure that under proportional representation, when you look at the kinds of voting systems that are being proposed, and this gentleman tried to get some clarity under dual member. That's what you were describing. I was talking about single transferable vote, which is under the rural urban option. You need to be very comfortable in this referendum if you're in favor of proportional representation. Because when you answer the question in the first case, it's between a choice between a system of voting which has worked in this country, tried and true, for close to 150 years, versus what is proportional representation that's not defined. Then you get to the second question. If there's 50% plus 1 approval of the first question, and you have 3 systems, 2 of which don't exist anywhere else in the world, they have not been tried. Some say it's a made in BC solution. I don't think with the lack of details and information that this government is hiding from British Columbians, that you want to take that leap of faith.
Thank you.
دارم هر بخاطر بسپارم میگه مثل انتخاب رنگ نیست و به اصطلاح این سیستم تا حالا 150 سال بوده جواب داده و چون درست lack of information میتونه باشه راجبه یا اطلاعات کافی نمیتونه در موردش باشه شما نمیاین I missed a part of it, sorry. Do you mind to repeat that again? I missed a part. The part after 150 years of which so you're basically talking 150 years, yes? Right. And the last part was the last part. Just with the lack of information, yes. So that yes. یا میگه 150 سال بوده ما به خاطر lack of information اطلاعات کافی راجع به وجود نداره ما نمیخوایم این ریسک ایجاد بکنیم که بیایم این سیستم جدید رو در واقع به مرحله اجرایی بکشیم در واقع. That's the last one. شد. مطمئنم به قسمتی رو من یادم رفت چی گفت، ببخشید قسمت کوچیکش رو.
I want to point out that all of the criticisms that come from the first past the post side on proportional representation are actually on things that already happened under first past the post. So for instance, this fear that political parties somehow control candidates, well, I'm going to be honest, you didn't vote for me to be the NDP candidate in North Vancouver Lonsdale. Neither did you vote for Jane to be the candidate in North Vancouver Seymour for the BC Liberals. The parties already have internal systems to decide who their candidates are. And also, I would also point to how more poignant it is actually under first past the post that this happens. In 2013, Christy Clark lost her seat in Point Grey, and then she went to Kelowna where they had already elected an MLA and said, I'm sorry, we know that you voted for this MLA, but they're not going to be your MLA anymore, I'm going to be your MLA. The party did that, and the party did that under first past the post. It happens now. The only difference is when you vote for them, they actually get attributed more power, even more power proportionately than you actually gave them. That's the problem under first past the post. Parties will exist under first past the post and proportional representation, but under first past the post, they get more than what you've given them. Under proportional representation, they get the same of what you give them.
Next point. تمام این خوردگیری ها، ایرادگیری هایی که دقیقاً مایکل صحبت میکنه در موردش، تمام اینا با سیستم نخست نفری و فرست پس پست وجود داره، تک تکشون. مثال براتون میزنم. مثلا با سیستم فرست پس پست این اتفاق میفته که خود من بوئن، شما وقتی که رأی دادین، شما که من انتخاب نکردین، یا جین یا مایک رو که مردم انتخاب نمیکنن، که احزابن که اسم اینها رو دقیقاً انتخاب میکنن، پیش روی شما قرار میدن و شما بهشون رأی میدین. پس این فرقی نمیکنه دقیقاً با سیستم قبلی. یه مثال براتون میزنم. در سال 2013 رهبر سابق حزب لیبرال خانم کریستی کلارک، دقیقاً ایشون باخت در انتخابات به آقای دیوید لیبی. اتفاقی که افتاد این بودش که کریستی کلارک بلند شد رفت کلونا، به زور یه نماینده دیگر رو که انتخاب شده بود و انداختن بیرون، بهش گفتم بفرمایید شما کنار، من خانم کریستی کلارک بعد بشینم اونجا و فرمانروایی بکنم. و همچین چیزی تحت نظام پروپورشنال اتفاق نمیفته به هیچ عنوان. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Because we don't have more time for the question, we are appreciated if you can write down your question. We will ask the MLAs to respond to these questions, and we can post it in social media or the CIF's Facebook or... yes, definitely. Yeah, we have a 5 minutes closing statement without translations, and thank you all for coming.
I appreciate it. First,
started with Bowen.
But sorry, you didn't get a chance to speak last time. Did you get a rebuttal?
Yeah, 1 minute. Yeah,
You go first.
Yeah.
but we can go first if you want. It's a closing statement, 5 minutes.
Well, thank you again for coming today. I know that there probably is still lots of questions that remain unanswered here, and that's been my first point, is that there is so much information and details that you really need to know. When it comes to something as important as our voting system, this is a binding referendum. How is it that we're being asked to vote on a potential change to our voting system when we don't have all the information? John Horgan had run in the last election promising that there would be a simple yes or no question, promising that there would be an all-parliamentary committee that would actually work through the details, and also that there would be geographic considerations in terms of the vote. Last time around, in 2005 and 2009, there was a 60% voting threshold, which is a special majority approval. You know that in your companies and your not-for-profit organizations, if you're going to change the bylaws or the Constitution, you need something that's more than 50% approval. To change the Canadian Constitution, it certainly takes more than 7 provinces to do so. And for Quebec to leave our country, There needs to be a clear question with a clear majority, and that's defined in the Canadian law. There are serious questions in terms of how this government has been running this referendum process. It's been the subject of a legal challenge by a third-party organization, ICBA, and the government has not responded to that challenge. It has asked for more time. There was an injunction application that was turned down, but that hearing now will be held in January, 2 months after this referendum is completed. And when the government today has come forward to try and respond to that, they've said we need more time. Why is that? They spent 14 months on this process before we launched into the referendum campaign. And more recently, they come forward with this promise of a second referendum. Yesterday I heard from someone who said, oh, we heard it's going to be 2 years from now. It's 2 election cycles from now. A current government cannot bind a future government. This government has put this promise in your elections guide that we talked about earlier that you received in the mail. And yet they have not passed the necessary amendment to the Referendum Act in the House. We're still debating this. And we're now voting based on that information. That is false. The government has not yet approved that second referendum legislation. So this is another example of how unfair this is. We're not just talking about process stuff. This is fundamental to our democratic rights. As I said before, we cannot allow the kind of division that will occur in our voting system. This will just create minority governments. Minority governments depend on those single issue fringe parties. You've worked hard to build a future in this country, as my parents did. We need majority governments that are first past the post that can work through all of the different priorities and balance them, not give voice to regional, religious, ethnicity, anti-immigration, other single issues that we know we need to work through. So please look at the information you have. Understand how important this vote is. And if you're confused and you still have questions, vote. Bowen and I both agree that British Columbians have the right to vote in this referendum, and that's what this is about. But in my view, for those who have doubts, for those who still are confused by the proposals that are put in front of you, vote to keep our current first past the post system, because that will give us stability, accountability, and a way to continue to form consensus to move forward with the province in the way that we've seen under previous governments, whether it's under an NDP government or a BC Liberal government, a social credit government. They've been able to put forward policies that have built this province. Now, we may have our differences about how that might occur, but we know that we need to build that consensus with strong representation across this province. And here we have a situation, as I mentioned before, where the only reason why we're doing this referendum is because it's a promise to the Green Party to be in power. That's not right. This is not a partisan issue. This is an issue for every one of us. So please vote, and as I said, should suggest and recommend you to urge you, vote to keep our current first past the post system. We can look at electoral reform as we go forward. We can always improve our system, but keep our current system this time around.
You have 5 minutes, please, to provide
Thank
your
you so
closing
much.
statement.
Thank you. Government is putting forward this referendum because during the campaign we promised that we would put forward a referendum. Referendums on proportional representation and electoral reform come very infrequently, and fair ones, binding ones, come even less frequently. And the reason why that is because you have to have a government that is willing to throw away the very system that brought them into power in the first place. Very few governments are willing to do that. This is actually a very unique situation in all of Canada where we have the opportunity as voters to decide for ourselves what kind of vision we have for our democracy. Do we want the current system, which allows a minority of voters to decide for everybody what the province should be doing? Or do we believe in the promise of democracy, that all people are equal, which means that all voices matter, which means that your vote should count towards the end result of an election. There are lots of confusing things that have been brought up by the no side in order to try to muddy the water so that you get confused about the referendum so that you don't vote the way that you want to. But it's actually quite simple. Under question 1, the question is, what do you believe democracies should be like? You know what majority governments are? Majority governments in Canada and in BC are governments that have gotten full control of government with less than half the voting population, or even not even the voting population, but the ones who voted supporting them. Only once since World War II has a majority government in BC actually been elected by more than 50% of voters. Only once since World War II. That is the history of majority governments we are dealing with here in BC. That is how we end up with policy lurches, where you get one government punishing the last government in order to make a political point so that the public thinks, oh yes, that last government was very bad. Oh, this government is very good. I believe that everybody who goes into politics goes in because they want to do better for their people. But I do not believe that politicians know what is good for the people all of the time. That's why we elect a diversity of voices and a diversity of opinions so that they can work things out together. This is a nonpartisan issue. The only political party, unfortunately, that is campaigning against this actively is the BC Liberals. Even the BC Conservative Party has put out videos slamming the BC Liberals for fear-mongering and making things confusing for everybody. The BC Conservatives are saying that about the BC Liberals. This isn't just a Green NDP supported thing. It's an issue of democracy. If you also want to talk about majority governments under first past the post, Donald Trump was elected under first past the post. You want to talk about anti-immigration? Stephen Harper was elected majority government under first past the post, closed down the Iranian embassies. You want to look at Modi in India, look at Philippines. Those are all first past the post systems. Extremism is everywhere. You cannot claim that first past the post keeps them away. In fact, what happens is it empowers them, because not only do they get in, they maintain total control of their governments. Under proportional representation, you have governments that reflect the political identity of the entire province. You will have people with more extreme views, you will have people with more environmental views, you will have people who believe in social justice, you will have people who believe in tax cuts for the rich and corporations. Not me personally, but there are people who believe that. And the difference between the first past the post side and the proportional representation side is that we are not afraid of having those conversations in the open. We are not afraid of democracy and what that actually means. This fall, you have an opportunity to vote for a system that 90 countries around the world use. And by the way, in contrast, first past the post is only used by about 50. So they're both legitimate forms of democracy. There's so much going on today. I know that we've run out of time, so I want to point out that in the Hamyari magazines on page 18 and 10, there are also proportional representation articles there, and I will stay behind here for as long as anybody wants to chat with me. Thank you.
Enjoyed this session. I'm going to provide you with some key dates regarding this referendum, so you're going to have enough information on when to vote. So from October 22nd to November 2, all of you should have received this package, this voting package, mailed to your places. From November 3 to November 23rd, voters can ask for voter packages. So if you have not received that, then you can go to electionsbc.ca and ask for voters package. And finally, by Friday, November 30th, 4:30 p.m., you should vote.
Can I just make it quick? Canada Post, they need to have your ballots before Friday 4:30 on November 30th. That means you need to, in fact, post everything 4 or 5 days before to make sure they actually get it. Don't wait until the very last minute to send it, right?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, and I leave it to Kami to finish the session.
There was some question, I don't know if either of you can answer or no. Some of the people, they may not receive or they lost their voting package, what they can do.
Yeah, if you haven't received your voting package or you've lost it, just contact Elections BC and they'll help you out. So just elections.bc.ca or just Google Elections BC. Yeah, give them a call. They'll help you.
Thank you so much, especially the MLAs that give us the time, that give us some information. But please, if you have any question and concern, write it down and we will request from MLAs to answer to that and get back to all of us. Unfortunately, we have another event in this place, so we need to make it clear for this event. Thank you so much for